Yes.
Now, welcome, comrades, and thank you for joining us. Sister Ida, please take the opportunity to welcome our members to our class for today before we start.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Conscientism class. Our reading today is on the screen, and would anybody like to read it for us? Anybody going to offer? Oh, maybe I'm going to have to read. Who's going to offer?
Tapua.
Oh, wonderful, Sister Tapua. Feel free.
Yeah.
It's on the screen, and please feel free to go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This connection between an ideological standpoint and the writing of history is a perennial one. A check on the work of the great historians, including Herodotus and Thucydides, quickly exposes their passion concern with ideology. The irresistible moral, political, and sociological comments are particular manifestations of more general ideological standpoints. Classically, the great historians have been self-appointed public prosecutors, accusing on behalf of the past, admonishing on behalf of the future. Their accusations and admonishings have been set in a rigid framework of presuppositions, both about the nature of the good man and about the nature of the good society, in such a way that these presuppositions serve as intimations of an implicit ideology.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sister Tapua. And hope you can hear me. Confirm that.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much, Sister Tapua. And once again, thank you very much, Sister Ida, for welcoming everyone. Greetings once again to all of you. Permit me to recognize the presence of all the members present here. That includes Brother Benny, Owusiwe, Sister Ida, Sister Tapua with us, Sister Chifomo. We have Sister, I think it's Sister, okay, we have Sister Grace with us. We have Brother Ogo, Elder Sam, greetings, and Andrew, Sarah, it's a pleasure to see you joining us. You are able to make it. So welcome to once again to our Consciousness Study Group. And here for new members who are joining us for the first time, we do meet here every Thursday for the last many years to actually just read the book by Kwame Nkrumah. The book we are reading is this book, Consciousness. We are around in page 61, which is probably chapter 3. We are in chapter 3. And we have been reading from the introduction. It has taken us, Sister Ida, I think it's 2.5 years or 2 years. Because we do probably a paragraph per Thursday. And we've been doing that on a weekly basis for the last 2 years, if I'm correct.
Yeah, roughly, yeah.
Yeah, roughly 2 years. So all the recordings of our previous readings and discussions are always shared in our Consciousness YouTube channel. So that those who might not be able to make it can still have an opportunity to review our readings or our discussions and can still be able to comment. We have been interacting with some other members via YouTube who ask questions. Sometimes they also share our network there. And all the recordings are always available on Wednesday and latest Thursday every week. So we have been reading the previous paragraph, which was on African Renaissance, if you can see it, and on the history. And just to take a little review for those who are joining us today, to have a connection of where we are coming from, this is under Society and Ideology, which is the title of chapter 3. And chapter 2 is about philosophy and society. So in chapter 3, about society and ideology. So a lot of time you'll come across the word ideology in our reading, but we have been looking particularly in Kuma's presentation on the role of history in a society. And if we look at that, we look at the previous class, African Renaissance, the new African Renaissance, which you can see in the screen, and how history is important in that. Then today, now we are also getting now the connection between ideology or ideological standpoint and history again. So just for the purpose of a catch-up with members who are with us, once you are done with reading the text as Sister Sapua read, we ask you to share with us your thinking. Not basically your opinion, but probably your thinking. What do you think of the paragraph? And those thoughts then is what you share with us. You can decide to share your thoughts either per sentence or a general paragraph. But that is what you do. So I think either if that will be right, we might allow a reading of the previous two paragraphs we did, but probably we now focus on this paragraph just to get the connection for members who are joining to the first time on what we read in the last class, which is the last two paragraphs. If anybody will be willing to read for us the previous two paragraphs that start with the word in the new African Renaissance, but our discussion is in this highlighted paragraph for today. But we're just doing that to get you at least the few people who are joining us for the first time to get you the link of where we are coming from in the previous class. Any member who might be willing to do for us that reading? Sister Ida?
I'm happy to read it, yeah. In the new African Renaissance, we place great emphasis on the presentation of history. Our history needs to be written as the history of our society, not as the story of European adventures. African society must be treated as enjoying its own integrity. Its history must be a mirror of that society, and the European contact must find its place in this history only as an African experience, even if as a crucial one. That is to say, the European contact needs to be assessed and judged from the point of view of the principles animating African society. And from that point, and from the point of view of the harmony and progress of this society. When history, sorry, I've got something in my way. When history is presented in this way, it can become not an account of how those African students referred to the introduction, because sorry, let me start again. When history is presented in this way, it can become not an account of how those African students referred to in the introduction became more Europeanized than others. It can become a map of the growing tragedy and the final triumph of our society. In this way, African history can come to guide and direct African action. African history can thus become a pointer at the ideology which should guide and direct African reconstruction. So that was last week's reading. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sister Ida, for that. And therefore, this is our today's reading. And I'll read it again to give you time. That says that this connection between an ideological standpoint and the writing of history is a perennial one. A check on the work of the great historians, including Herodotus and Thucydides or Thucydides, quickly exposes their passionate concern with ideology. Their irresistible moral, political, and sociological comments are particular manifestations of a more general ideological standpoint. Practically, the great historians have been self-appointed public prosecutors, accusing on behalf of the past, admonishing on behalf of the future. Their accusations and admonishings have been set in a rigid framework of presuppositions, both about the nature of the good man and about the nature of a good society, in such a way that these presuppositions serve as intimation of an implicit ideology. That's our reading for today. So once again, feel most welcome to all those of joined us. As I've said, once we are done with our reading as usual, we request members to actually share their thinking with us. So who is willing to start sharing with us what they think on this paragraph?
Brother, Brother Pigeon, can I ask the meaning of a word? Because we usually ask what meaning.
Let's start with that.
So
let's start with that.
The writing of history is a perennial one. Perennial. Okay. So perennial. To me, in plants, it would be yearly, but I'm not sure. Perennial, yes. Maybe we could check that word, or somebody could.
Sister Tapua,
Perennial. Somebody else. The sister has the answer already.
It's a yearly thing, is it?
It's pointing at the continuous association between a historical writer's ideological point of view and the fact that they're writing history. So he's saying that you can't detach it. It's always there. You cannot write history, yes, without. It will always be there. So perennial plans will always be there. They're seasonal. They'll all come in, year out. So when you're looking at somebody writing history or anything historical, you cannot detach whatever they're writing from their ideological standpoint.
Okay.
Any other
that's
question?
the word I would ask about. Sorry, I don't know if anybody has any other words they want to ask.
No, I would like us also to look at who was the Herodotus. I know they have been mentioned here, but probably a quick history about them will be very important for us to understand who they are, so that we can be able also to see how they fit into what we are discussing today. So a brief information just from the Wikipedia is that Herodotus is an ancient Greek and was a Greek historian and a geographer from the Greek city of Aliscanasus, which is now Turkey, under Persian control in the 5th century BC, a later citizen of Turi in modern Calabria. And he wrote the histories, a detailed account of Greco-Persian wars, among the subjects such as the rise of Achaemenid dynasty and Syria, and he was also described as the father of history. So you see, we were talking about history and ideology, and Herodotus is being referred as the father of history, a title that was confirmed to him by the ancient Roman orator, which is Cicero. So history primarily covers the life of prominent kings and famous battles such as them. So he was writing about those, and his works were deviating from the main points to provide cultural and ethnographic, geographic, and historiographic backgrounds that form an essential part of narratives that provide the reader. So That is who Herodotus was. All his books, I think we have them in our Pan-African library. So if anybody might require the works of Herodotus, and probably I may be sharing some, but we have his books in our library. Now, the next person that is being shared here is who? That name is becoming a bit hard. Let me check it. That's a very, let me get the name. So let's look at who he was. Now, Thucydides is also here. So he was also, as you can see, up my screen has changed. So he was also born in Athenian, and he was an Athenian historian and a general. So his history was for about Peloponnesian War, recounts of the 5th century BC war between the Spartans and Athens until around 411 BC. He has been dubbed as the father of scientific history. So here he's coming in as the father of scientific history. For the other Herodotus is just being described as the father of history. And by those who accepted his claim to have applied strict standards of impartiality and evidence gathering and analysis of the cause and effect, without reference to intervention by the gods, as outlined in his introduction of his work. So he has been called the father of the school of political realism. There's an element coming here which we call political realism, which views the political behavior of individuals as a subsequent outcome of relations between states, as ultimately mediated by and constructed upon fear and self-interest. So his text is still being studied in the university, which include the Melian dialogue, as regarded as a seminal text on international work. So more generally, he developed an understanding of human nature to explain behavior in such crises as plague, massacre, and war. So that's about those two historians. I think that will really help us as we share our thinking on the paragraph we read today. So let me go back to the paragraph, if that's okay with us. Yeah, now we can go ahead. Sister Ida, are you around?
Sorry, yes, I am.
Ida?
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
You can help me take up the names of those, or calling the roll call for those who can give their comments. Those who want to pass, they can pass. You can help me on that a bit. That's some few things.
Okay. Let me see. Oh, Brother Bernie, you seem to be at the top, and as you came in early, maybe you'd like to share your thoughts on the reading, please, if you're free, Brother Bernie.
Okay, thank you. My interest is in what we first mentioned on the role of ideology and the writing of history. And of course, as we mentioned, Thucydides and Herodotus, we find that there are distinctions between the two these Greek historians. Each has his own line and approach of recounting the past events. How do we judge today? Of course, not much is talked about history in our present time than some other things. Yet, if you come to social media, there is a whole interest in history of our African past today than ever. And the question is, why? And that also should be seen in the light of, are we writing? You see, because now what I see is it's a particular line of maybe, let's say that past history which embraces the whole landscape of political, religion of those periods, And I mean, we come to other realms of community living. But today also, if I recount myself in the school, my school days up to now, I can't actually smell any kind of history that has been exciting about our pre-independence time, because much of my studies that I've done also demanded a bit of history for me to search and read. And the one surprising thing which I've mentioned here before is when I was sometime looking for pre-colonial history of Zimbabwe and just around that entry. And at UKZN library, it was just until later on, I think after 2 years, that later on online, I have come across certain materials which I don't know where they were coming from. You see, so the writing of history should be important today because it is this period that some people also have set themselves to muddy the waters of, I mean, the past, so that people can be confused. So, in as much as we are not able to write history, we will have a problem. But then it also goes with the ideology that guides what we write and who we are writing for. This is very important that I feel that we should rather uh, maybe we make it one of the important factors to look at as we keep on with the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Bernie. Let me move on to one of our sisters. Sister Grace, would you like to comment on what you heard today and seen? Thank you.
Let me listen to other people and then kind of understand the whole thing and comment.
Okay, let me look for another sister then. Ooh, Sister Juliana, you're about the only other one, as Sister Tapua read. Let me try and see if you've got anything to say about what was read today.
I'm sorry,
Please.
I've just reconnected with you just now, so I'm
Oh,
not.
okay. Oh,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. No problem, no problem. Okay, then the next sister would be Sister Tapua. Would you like to say anything? Or shall I go on to men? I know you read, and we thank you for it.
No, it's all right. I think for me, what Nkrumah is pointing out is the fact that you cannot have a neutral writing of history because the facts of events that happened cannot be denied, but it's the interpretation that brings in an ideological perspective, which is why I think he goes on to say, where is it that he's saying that you either self-appointed public prosecutors accusing on behalf of the past or admonishing on behalf of the future. It reminds me of the David Livingstone part of history where the Europeans would say David Livingstone discovered the Victoria Falls, and yet there were people around here. So that word discovered the Victoria Falls tells us what they were here to do and why. Whereas if you're talking about the Victoria Falls from the indigenous point of view, they would talk more of the spiritual and sociological importance of the Victoria Falls. So I think this is a warning to us that when we read and see historical presentations, we need to understand and look at the people behind or the writers behind it. Because I've read a lot about Traore, and you can see the type of comments, and some of them are so obvious about the ideological standpoint that they have. And you notice that these people either are for or against, and very few people are neutral. I think I'll end there for now.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. The next brother on the list would be Brother Andrew. Brother Andrew, would you like to mute and tell us what you've got from this reading, if you know, and what you think about the topic of the day, which is histories and stuff. Thank you. Brother Andrew?
Sister Ida?
Yes.
Brother Andrew made a chat that he might not be able to speak.
Oh, okay. So sorry, Brother Andrew. Okay, then I think it's Ogu. Is it Brother Ogu? Would you like to mute? Are you ready
Yes.
to tell us anything to contribute? Thank you. We'd appreciate it.
Okay, I think the first thing is to comment on the initial question that one of the sisters asked about what is perennial. As I think it was yourself who explained it, actually.
It was me who asked, and yes, what I knew
Well,
of it as a flower, as a gardening term. Thank you.
it means it's there every year on year. It's always there. That's simply what it means. So in terms of history, it's always there. But I think something that I was picking up from what Nkrumah was saying is that these great historians have written history from an individual's point of view, their own individual point of view. They're not representing necessarily the collectively agreed recording or experience of their people. If you remember what was discussed last session, just reading, the article before, one of the things Kwame Nkrumah talked about is that African history has to be viewed from the experience of African people. And within that context, Europeans who interacted with us, we need to see them, if you like, write our history, citing them as people who impacted on our history, significant as their impact was, but we see them in that context rather than, as was just stated now, that, for example, take the River Niger, that Mungo Park discovered the River Niger, which, when there are African people, the Mali Empire was there already, before he arrived and so on. So in that sense, what I'm saying is, if we look at history from the point of view of the Europeans, which Thucydides and what's the name of the other historian again? Thucydides and Herodotus. Yeah. They basically are writing from the European point of view, and the underlying ideology that they're operating out of is individualism. So it's their individual opinion. And also because these people are powerful people, as Nkrumah has cited somewhere, that history is often written from the point of view of, the people in power, basically. They don't necessarily reflect the views of everyone in society. So powerful as they may be, history needs to be written from the point of view of the people, of the masses. Does that help?
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you.
Okay.
Sister Myra?
Sister Myra, come in.
No. Sister Ida.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I've pointed, I think, where the brother was discussing on the history being written by the
Yes,
other ruling class. I think that was our previous reading before last week.
that's
I think
correct.
that text is what you are referring to. Is it correct?
It was, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Sister, you
Yeah.
can go ahead.
Okay.
Please allow me to,
Sister Tapawa, I see you got your hand up. Yes, please. We'll let you.
just to add on to what my brother there was saying. Herodotus was actually um, showing a different perspective of writing history, because history had always been written about kings and queens and wars. It mostly represented the upper classes. But what he was doing was he started writing history from the point of view of the ordinary people. But the irony is, he couldn't write for the ordinary people. You can only try so much to
Yeah.
represent other people's point of view. Unless people are given the voice to say it, then we will only presuppose. I think that word has been used in the text. So,
Yeah.
as Pan-Africanists and as intellectuals of sorts, we're being warned that whilst we might have a perspective of how things should go, we need to make sure that people have a voice and an understanding of the direction where we're going. I was listening to Malema's speech on reclaiming land for South Africans. And in the comments section, someone wrote in a very brush, but I thought it was an important position, where he says, and I know a lot of us might not agree with this, but I didn't in the first instance. He was rude and brash, and he said, does this man know what he's saying to give people the land? Because if you give people the land when they are hungry and they don't have jobs, they'll just sell the land back to the white people. So we need to make sure we've got some kind of gap that makes people appreciate the land and what they can get out of it, because it's a long-term thing, owning land. You have to cultivate and work on it for months. Whereas if you're giving it to a person who's hungry, who's been hungry for so long, and they see the thousands of dollars dangled in front of them for a piece of land, I'm sure we know what's going to happen. And I thought, oh, that makes sense. So when we're talking about the unification and liberation of Africa, we need to take the people with us. Because as long as we're not addressing the short-term and long-term goals that the people have, then we might actually think we're doing the right thing, and yet we are in a space where things might not work out the way we hope they will, because we've not quite understood and worked with the people. I think I'll stop there for now.
Okay, thank you. Brother Ogo, I see you've got your hand up again. So let me let you. And then Brother Sam, I was going to go next, but I see that we have two brothers extra who can. So I'll ask you after Brother Ogo to contribute your bit, and then I'll come in. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Brother
Yeah.
Ogo.
Thank you very much for the contributions that Sister Ida has just made, and for pointing, correcting me on the Herodotus's contribution.
That was Sister Tapoa.
Oh,
Okay,
sorry.
thank you.
I'm trying to get. Sorry, Sister
I don't want to
Tapoa.
take credit when it was another sister. Thank
Right.
you.
Okay. Yeah. I think the second point as well that she made about, referencing Malema and the land issue. Crucially, whether for our history to be properly written, we must be better organized. We must be organized as a people. So we don't then give the individual the right, or if you like, leave it to the individual, to do what they like with the land. But if the people are organized, the people themselves will have control of the land and use it for the benefit of the masses. But because we are tied up presently by the system that suggests the individual can have a land. Obviously, she's right. When people are hungry, they'll sell the land and do what they want with the proceeds. But if we're organized, better organized as African people, then our collective ownership of that land will be used for the benefit of the masses. That's just something I wanted to introduce to state.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Brother Sam, would you like to come in? And then I'll come in after you as the next sister. Thank you.
Thanks and good evening, everybody on the platform.
Good evening.
I hope I will not repeat what other members have said, but I think for me, the important thing here is that Nkrumah is also warning us. You know, sometimes when you don't read, when people say you must read between the lines, you will not discover these things. And there are subtle people who can twist words, and something that is not supposed to mean this, it can mean that if they twist the words. So Nkrumah is making us aware that as especially African revolutionaries or African people who want to see change for the better for Africa, we need to be able to scrutinize everything, especially knowing this fact that he is telling us, that the history will always be written on the slant or on the direction of the one who is victorious. If you are the defeated one, your history will be written in a manner that the victor wants to say. And that is why what Sister Tapua said about Victoria Falls. Victoria Falls is perpetuating the history of the Europeans when they came into Africa. When they came, that place has always been Musiwa Tunya. And if we don't bring this as the African people, which makes sense, when the water evaporates and everything goes up, it's like a smoke. And that's why our people said, Musiwa Tuna, there's a smoke that is going up. But if you call it Victoria Falls perpetually, that history of our people and what the name meant will disappear. And it's all over the African continent. You can go, if you don't follow the history you written by the Europeans, you will know that even the scrolls of Timbuktu will be denied. Those were discovered by the European historians and European philosophers. But we know that those were written by African scholars long before even Europe knew how to write. So this is why this aspect is very important. Here in South Africa, or not only in South Africa, if we take the reparations movement, it wouldn't be there if history was continuously being written and followed through the European landscape. We would not know that, in fact, they owe us backwards from slavery to date. Europeans, colonialism, and neocolonialism still owes Africa big time. If we don't know this, if we don't know this fundamental principle that Nkrumah tells us, that history is part of society, and history will always be written by the victor or the one who is in power. And we who are the oppressed, we need to comb through this written history and know. And not only do that, we must also rewrite history to suit us as the oppressed people. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Sam. My contribution to what we've read goes back to that word again, perennial, because I look at it as like plants. Plants are perennial, but if you leave them in long enough, they start to change. Maybe their color or something about them changes. And I think that even though they come back year in, year out, you get changes in what's from the original. And to me, I think that this talk of history, just like Brother Sam has just said about, things like reparations and stuff like that, and changing, not necessarily thinking that what we've been almost brainwashed to know about white history is so, and that there isn't so much a black history, or the naming of places and things like that. And I think that this perennial that we're learning. So I like the bit about the accusations and admonishings have been set in a rigid framework of presuppositions, and I think that's white history, that they try to make everybody think whatever they say is so, and there wasn't a history before. Um, I'm interested in this bit about the nature of the good man and about the nature of the good society, because those good men and good societies aren't, when you really dig down and start searching and looking into them, are they really good men? Are they really good societies? If so, why is there such a big change in our current um, world that doesn't allow those sorts of things to stand up and be straightforward? Whether it's not just about African history, whether it's like the wars that we're currently experiencing in different parts of the world, and especially the war in North Africa, what's going on in Gaza. Where are the good men? Where are the good? Where's the good society? Can we really call it that? Um, uh, so it says these presuppositions, all these words, serve as intimations of an implicit ideology. But whose ideology are we talking about? Because how much of an African ideology are we seeing and hearing about? I mean, even some of the things that we hear about in South Africa or in different parts of Africa, maybe even the Congo, you think, how did this come about? Why is it that we're even hearing these sorts of things? So I do think that history is very important, and if we don't dig deeper and further back, we get lost in understanding of how these things have come about. I'd love somebody to sort of maybe put me on a different path and tell me that my thinking is a bit wobbly, but I do think that what's written here is sort of trying to get us to think about an older history than we've been taught about.
No,
So
Sister
that's my
Ida,
contribution.
Sister Ida,
Yes.
I think you today you have shared your thinking in the longest time possible. I think so. You've taken the longest time maybe in record for sharing your thinking, which is very encouraging.
Oh, really? Oh, sometimes I
yeah,
talk.
yeah.
Sometimes I talk. Okay.
No, but I like the fact that at least you've engaged the text fully for some good time today, which I really appreciate. Yeah, as you're asking, we always don't have also a perfect answer here. We allow members to share their thinking, and therefore we don't also claim any thinking to be the right thinking. But rather, we respect each person's thinking unless it's contrary to what probably is factual. But we appreciate the thinking. And I really appreciate the fact that you've gone even to touch on the good man and the good society, which the previous speech has been touched on. But I will also maybe request, as you are asking the same, maybe if somebody can explain that last section, which says that the presupposition serves as intimation of an implicit ideology. Probably the element of intimation of an implicit ideology. And
well, would you like to share your thinking of what you think, the questions you've asked, and then I'll go on to one about Africa, but because you're now sort of continuing. So, maybe you could share
Yeah,
your views.
let me go ahead. Let me go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me go ahead. First is to start with the first sentence. It says that the connection between ideological standpoint and the writing of history is a perennial one. And this just to draw to us our attention. Have we ever realized that? Have we ever even pointed out or noticed that in the histories we read and listen to, they had some ideological standpoint? How many of us have been conscious of that? And the element that connection has been ever there. It has never left any writing. So I think it draws to our attention again that, so when you hear the history of maybe your community, were you able to tell the ideological thinking or ideological standpoint of the person who was writing that word? Because sometimes when we engage with the writing, we just engage in it, and sometimes it calls to the highest level of maybe analysis to understand the ideological standpoint. And I think in our previous reading, we read that the key dominant ideology is either idealism or materialism. And we know that in our previous readings again, that idealism speaks more of the hierarchies in society, while the core spirits, and beyond even the so-called idealism standing for either the spirits and ideas, but basically it promotes the element of individualism and hierarchy in society that either bring things like racism and the rest. Well, materialism standpoint is that everybody and everything comes from the same matter, which means that from a materialist perspective, if you're a materialist writer, then you'll treat everybody equal in your historical text. Because materialism believes that everybody comes from the same matter, or everything originates from the same matter, and that matter is the primary source of everything else. It's not actually the ultimate or the sole reality, but it's the primary source. So if you are that materialist who treats everybody from your ideological standpoint as equal, then in your writing of your work, you might not discredit other persons or embrace other persons. But you realize that, again, in the previous chapter, we were told that the history of a nation is written by the dominant society, which means when the dominant write about it, the moment they become dominant, it's already a class separation in a society. So when we listen to our history of Africa and what some other speakers have also pointed at, the white man want to embrace the element of superiority in our writing by saying that they were the people who discovered. The element that they are the people who discover, what does it speak about the people in that society? It means they never saw those in that society as equal enough to be called people, or equal enough to be treated as human beings who could have level of what you call understanding or even discovery. That alone is already an element of idealism, trying to belittle others or trying to categorize others as not actually capable enough to reach your level of what you call understanding. And this is what we read in the previous chapters about the bringing back of form, because the level of understanding or knowledge was believed to be only of the people at the above level. And therefore, the people below could not be treated to be able or to be in their capacity to understand. So that ideological standpoint that are always silent in the writing of history is something we need to start pointing out. When this person talk about the history of my community, what was this standpoint? What was this ideological thinking? When these people talk about Africa was dark and they claim that you are this way, was it really who we were as a people? Because in African setup, I believe we treated each other equal. And therefore, everybody was an equal being. We had respect for the children, respect for the women, respect for the elderly, irrespective of what you call the physical differences. For example, one was an elder, one was a woman, and one was a child. But we treated each other equal. But when you look at the text of the other histories that when we expose ourselves in universities or in academic corridors, they tend to bring some level of racism or classism that makes other people be superior than others. So I'm looking, of course, these two historians, and I've read the Thucydides, it was actually working what you call scientific politics or scientific history. So trying to put history in science context. What does that mean? That the beliefs and ideas we have about how our history was. For example, what was pointed out, for example, the Victoria Falls, how Victoria was spiritual to us, he could not accept that. He wanted scientific explanation to that. Well, to us, that was not even scientific, it was our belief. So where they realized that we had a belief connection with our society, they actually brushed that off because they think that it was not justifiable enough. And therefore, they wanted only a history that we could quantify in terms of fire. So when they come to our society and they say that we could give sacrifices and then the rain could rain, then they will say, how is that scientific? And if that is what was in our society, then they could rub it out from that writing of the history, because they never wanted to take that account in their historical writing because the ideological standpoint did not embrace that. Then I also see what they call the irresistible moral, political, and sociological comments as particular manifestation of more general ideological points. And these are subtle things in history. The reason I'm trying to be concerned with this is that these are the silent codes in history which you don't understand. The moral standpoint, the political standpoint of the author of the writing. And then we go that classically, the great historians have been self-appointed public prosecutors. Look at, first of all, being a prosecutor. What does that mean? You can prosecute. And there's a famous saying that you cannot be, I don't know, the judge and the prosecutor. But in this case, they play both roles. So where is the fairness in the process of their prosecution? You are the judge, you are the attorney, you are the complainant, and you are the prosecutor. Which means you could prosecute our history without any question based on what you want or any history you write. You can prosecute it independently. They're saying, you see what they were doing. In that their prosecution, they could accuse the past. They can also actually destroy the future. Now, the element of admonishing on behalf of the future is very important. And we really realize that the history that were written, some of them actually admonished what was supposed to be there, or even accused some of what was in our past. Then the last thing that I want to comment on is that last sentence. I'll say that the accusation and admonition have been set in a rigid framework. Now, I'm also pointing out at that element of a rigid framework. Why is their framework rigid? Which means it's a predetermined thing. You can't talk about it. You're trying to write a history, but you already have a fixed endpoint of what you want to get out of that history. So they actually have a fixed endpoint of what they want to talk about the nature of a good man. They have like a template of a good man. While we know that there's nothing that is always complete or perfect. People are improving. But to them, it's like they have a template of what is the nature of a good man. And they also have a template of what is a nature of a good society or a character of a good society. And in our previous reading, I think we have also come across that there's no society that is static and there's no society that is perfect. The society is keep evolving and moving. But when you apply a rigid framework, which is like a perfect template, it means that you might not be open enough in your presentations or your writing, but you'll be fixed to the end product because you're. And that's what I'll comment for this particular moment. Back to you, Sister Ida. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Brother Bernie, I see you've got your hand up. And after you, we'll go to One Map Africa. Thank you.
Thank you. Listening to all the various contributions people are raising, you see, what bothers me and of late, probably with the social media era, a lot has come out, is the whole big question to our African academia. That even I remember, not that I remember, I know I've been learning history of written by African people that will say that we were discovered. So these words, after reading it for 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, possibly it is in my late 30s into 40s that I began to hear something like, no, this is not true. This is not true, you see. But then African scholars have not contested these things in a way that they could have also come with alternative writing, with the exception of Sheikh Anta Diop and some few others up to Nkrumah. In this case, how do we, I mean, what I want to put together, how do we judge ourselves? And in what context do we judge ourselves? Because if we take Thucydides, who I will describe him as more empirical, and then Herodotus also, who actually goes by freestyle, very ideological. In which context do we put our academia? And today, the sad aspect is that it is the ordinary people that have risen to actually give us the facts, which actually is an embarrassment. And a lot of people have been writing to question some of our professors. And I dare say that there are times one will want to ask whether they should even keep on with their titles or not. You see, and there's one example I put I think I made a comment. I wrote a comment about Professor Rukuni, who he published a book entitled "Being an African," and he said that he used to write false reports about Zimbabwe economy and financial situation to the World Bank and IMF. It made them to have a more negative look at Zimbabwe within the within the 1980s into the 90s. This is somebody who is a scholar, an expert, an authority. Is it an ideology? But more or less, he's trained also in an empirical research approach. But then, how do we judge such people? Is it deliberate? And for what purpose? So I link that to where Nkrumah said that the accusation admonished us have been set in a rigid framework for presupposition, both about the nature of the good man and about the nature of the good society. So you find that our society, in terms of the elite class, the academic as we are, normally we want to conform because it is assumed that it is set up for us to follow that pattern in order to what? To please or become relevant. But then at the end of the day, what we find is that we are undermining ourselves. And we are actually keeping ourselves at a standstill where others are overtaking us. This is how I also look at the whole picture. And well, let me end here for others also to come. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Brother Bernie. Sister Paul, I see you've got your hand up, but can I ask you just to hang on to what you have to say and let One Map Africa have their say on what they think of the reading, and then we'll have you back because we have lots of time today. So I know you'll have other questions to add to it. Is that all right?
That's okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So One Map Africa, can we get your views on what you think of the reading today? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Greetings, everybody. Greetings all. Yes, the reading sometimes from the perspective of history, from the African perspective, here Dr. Nkrumah was trying to warn his fellow Africans that history which is written by others is not inspired, but history which is you are written by one of us. And when it is told by one of us, it's inspired. So whatever we listen, whatever we read, everybody who writes from his own perspective, sometimes there is bias in line with his own group or his own race. So that was the warning which was being done, that for the future, whatever comes or from the past, what was happening, all is inspired spiritually. So whoever is taking up that, there is that perspective we should also see that sometimes when we are reading history, when we are teaching history, it's inspired within. But if you are not part of that group, you cannot see that because the inspiration which has to come cannot come. So sometimes it becomes bias, which might not be the exact feelings, because in history, there is the feeling that you are part of it. There is the feeling that you are one of that which is existing, and which was existing, which should continue to exist. So if that feelings is not there, so you will not be part of it. So it becomes not exactly the history that should be there. So that's why you was emphasizing that the history which was there and that will be there in the future sometimes is shaped by the people who are biased, which might not give us the true reflection of us as Africans, because it's not written by Africans. But when we write it as Africans, that will give us exactly the true reflection of us as Africans. So this was the perspective which was bringing that whoever is going to listen to history, is going to read the history, or is going to write the history. If you are writing history for your own people, that will be inspired. That inspiration which comes with the spirit will give you the accurate way of doing it. But when I am just doing it because some people have done it, they need money, and I need to be known, that from there I have been to America, I have been to Asia. I cannot talk about the feeling of the Americans or the Asians. But when I am in Africa, we're talking about the feeling of the Africans. I have the feelings of the Africans because I am part of the group. I can feel how they feel. The spiritual perspective will also have to inspire me when I'm talking about it. This is why Nkrumah's spirit, when we say, still exists within the African community, and it can still inspire more people to just do the good things, that when we are talking, when we want to gather and do things, that the spirit of oneness which is within us as Africans, then if that is ignited, that will also spread, because it's just being told by the exact people who are supposed to be telling it the way it is. That's the perspective I see how the writer was saying. So that is just like a warning that we should be aware of this history which were told by others who are not us. We should also be very good in selecting and also taking what comes which is not ours and which is told the way we can learn, because it will cause conflict, because everybody who tells it have interest. So when the interest of somebody who is telling it is also perpetuated, then that perpetuation of the interest, which might not be the interest of the actual people who have that history which is being told. So that is the warning that was being given. From my own perspective, that's how I see the reading and how it warns us to be very careful when we are reading, and also not we have been telling that story of us. If we tell our own story, it becomes better. If somebody tells us our own story, that story not becomes very good. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. I'm interested in this spirit that you're talking about, because some of us on here will know that in another group there's been a real spirit of disunity amongst a whole load of Africans, and you just think, where does this come from? And so I'm interested in this spirit of unity and of the history. Maybe you could maybe talk a bit more on it. How is it when there's disunity? Because quite often there's a lot of disunity amongst Africans, and we don't always understand why. But it's there, and we can't pretend it's not. Maybe you could just touch on it a bit more, please. Thank you.
Yes, you see, you are right. This is where, when we are talking as Africans, we have our African way that we are Africans. Then, because remember, when the colonists those who colonize us, those who are plundering our resources, when they come and when we claim we are independent, they try by all means to plant within us some members which they will use as spy and promise them something which is beyond what they can reach, which others cannot see. So because when I am part of you and I have been a spy and I am promised to disharmony the family, when I'm one of the family members who might be 10 in the family or 12, then I'm just being planted to try and disunite the family. Yes, I will know the spirit, how things are being done. And whenever I know this is going to go the correct way, I try to make confusion and disagree with the majority. So that this is where sometimes you find the spirit within the African communities. Sometimes when you are talking about those who come up with the correct vision and the correct African way of doing it, like some were commenting about how currently Traore, when people are commenting, when people want to discredit him, there is a lot of things that they want to, the minor things that they will put up so that they try to discredit the spirit which is rising within Africa, the African spirit, the Africanism which is within us, the Pan-Africanism within us, that we continue to rally behind, that when it comes, sometimes it's not coming as people we see, that becomes the spirit just rise through some individual and inspire individuals to come in different forms and different ways so that people can regroup the African way and they see the African things. This is what was trying to be put in. This is where the spirit comes in. When you follow your ancestors, when you follow the correct way, you find that spirit will also be there to guide those who are in the correct path. And the same spirit, when you are part of the group, if you want to disturb it, yes, you can do it because you'll be planted the thing. Then you distract the spirit, you distract the direction, so people will not see the correct direction because there is distraction. That is what happens within the African. So that when somebody distract, there is that the bad apples within us, then we can fight each other. We start to kill each other with motives. That's why when you see, sometimes when we plan our own good things, that we say, okay, please, let's have a very disciplined and a quiet march. You find there are people who are going to plant 3, 4, 5 amongst ourselves. They pretend to be in a disciplined and quiet march, but their aim is to loot. When they come to the point of their loot, they start to behave differently, but they will be part of us. They break shops, they break houses, they break whatever. Then they started doing their looting because they have been planning behind the planned good things which is happening. Then all that group which have been doing that is now being labeled as looters because of 2 people amongst that group or 3 people. So that the spirit which has been distracted at that point, so you are given a bad name. So that's what the colonists always do, to try and reward or pay members of the same family or members of the same group in the African to distract, so that we continue to have bad things being said about ourselves. Then at the end of the day, we start fighting each other, killing each other, hurting each other, then throwing different names to ourselves because somebody is planning that, so that when we are distracted like that, we focus not on the correct direction, and then they continue to plunder, and they enjoy this destabilizing and the disunity that we will be having. And while we are trying to see what causes all this, we are trying to organize, they are also planning another plan to say when they come together and organize, we will have to do again another thing like that. That's how disunity comes amongst ourselves. Thank you. And
Thank you
that
very
is caused
much.
by the spirit distraction.
Okay, thank you very, very much. Sister Topoa, I'm going to make you wait again. I'm very sorry, but I see that Sister Juliana has her hand up. And as we asked her before and she didn't come in, now she wants to speak. Let's give her the chance. And I promise you are next. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sister Ida. This is my first time of coming to this group, and I'm really grateful for it because it's what we need, and part of the reason why the question you raised about this unity is deliberate on the one level, but also we have been miseducated over time. It's part of the divide and rule tactic that we have. Marcus Garvey talks about the people without knowledge of their history. It's like a tree without roots. And if we don't have knowledge of our history, we're bound to make the same mistake time and time again. And a lot of our people do not have knowledge of our history. And this kind of work study, this kind of session is what we need to have in order to rub minds together and have to articulate some of the ideas, even if it's incorrect, that this is a forum to get it wrong and also to gain education, to look at some of the books that you have on your list, some of which, some of us have read before, but not everybody have read it. We talk about we're Black, we're Africans, we're this, we're the other, and a lot of people have got so many different ideas about what being an African means. And if we don't have education, if we don't have knowledge of our history, we're not ever going to be able to gain a much more accurate way of looking at our future. Because if you don't know where you've been, you're not going to know where you're going. So this is where this unity comes about. And then the oppressors, they enjoy this because they think, well, typical. And they will always throw things at us, crumbs and whatever. And we've seen this with a lot of the leaders in Africa and the Caribbean and all the other areas that are, controlled by the oppressors and so on. And they'll throw all those confusion and distractions and so on. And we continue to chase all those distractions. We fight each other to death over those distractions. And we can't see the woods for the trees, or we see the trees for the wood, whichever way it goes. But that's the crumbs of the disunity. We talk about, oh, these people enslaved us, or these people were, have a language, or these people, and that becomes the basis on which we try to separate ourselves. Oh, I'm a Caribbean, or I'm a Nigerian. Micronationalism becomes the order of the day, rather than looking at what is it that will unite us, that will make us, that will help us to fight and forge forward and utilize the time that we have to plan. Because sometimes we think that, the future is ahead of us and this and that and the other, but the future is now. And if we don't plan now, we are going to make the same mistakes over and over again. And the disunity will continue from one generation to the other. But something has to give in order for us to stem this, this division. Because it's deliberately planned by the Europeans to ensure that, look at Europeans. They fought each other historically. They were each other's worst enemy. When their interest is threatened, they come back together. African people need to learn to do the same thing. You don't do anything without us. And therefore, when you're against one person, we are all going to come for you. It's like the situation with Diane Abbott in this country, in Britain, where we have, one of our oldest Black woman politicians under attack, under the cosh, time and time again. We need to take, the war to Parliament and come out in numbers and say, we're not going to stand for this. Because if they can do it to her, they can do it to any of us. They're pushing us all over the place in our workplaces, and they're pushing us off one by one. So we really need, if we don't learn to unite now, I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but the future is now. Thank you.
I love that the future is now, and thank you for that. Sister Tapar, it's your turn. Feel free. Tell us what you think, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to everyone who's contributed. I've been wanting to make a contribution from some while ago, so I've got points written down that I will go through, and some of them might sound a bit disjointed. But our starting point as Pan-Africanists or as Africans is being very, very, very clear of what we want to achieve and where we want to go. My example is taking Traore and what he hopes for Burkina Faso. It's very clear. Things that will help the ordinary person in their day-to-day lives. My concern is from this passage that we've read, we've been given historians who were examples of historians who are far from the typical example of what historians of their time were. People who wrote about monarchy, about kings and queens. These ones started writing about the ordinary people. But even then, it wasn't from the ordinary person's perspective, because it was being written by a person of a different class. The same with the scientific history. When I read that he focused on scientific history, and knowing what I now know about the contributions of Africans to science, I asked myself, is he one of those who was busy trying to elevate the scientific perspective from a European's point of view versus suppressing the African point of view? So what we have presented to us in the search engine that we went to, or that Pigeon went to, gives us a Eurocentric position of their perspective on those two guys. The next thing is we need to make sure that we run away from being told that this is a historical fact when it is embellished with ideology. Yes, they wrote historical things that could be proven factual, but because of who they are, the context in which that information was presented tells us a lot more about themselves. As an African, I think we need to move away. I've got to apologize before I say this, because it could easily be misunderstood. The word African spirit, for me, is a danger area for a number of reasons. It's difficult to define, and being Zimbabwean, I have now got to know that when a person says we're doing this for Africans because we're Africans, I'm very wary because we're Black. We've taken back the land. We've done 1, 2, 3, and this is good for us. Because what I see on the ground in the African experience that Nkrumah is talking about, there are people who will say this is right when it is right for one group but wrong for another African group. With people who are saying this is good for Africa when it is bad for other Africans. I'll give you an example. The Sahel. There are Africans who are saying it's bad, and there are other Africans who are saying it's good. There is competition between the two bodies. I mean, the African Union feels undermined by the Sahel. Therefore, they will say it's bad. So when we're talking about good and bad, they're evaluative terms. And if you look deeply into what is being referred to as good or bad, you will see the ideology that that person is upholding. One thing that I think we need to learn as Africans is that African perspective is not unitary. We cannot see the same things because we're Black. Our experiences could be the same, but our understanding of those experiences and the solution to those experiences will not be the same. And it's a good thing, because as Africans, we need to understand what makes groups work, group dynamics. We need to understand dialectics, that somebody who holds a different point of view is not necessarily an enemy. We need to work at working together. We kind of find it very easy to say, well, because you hold a different position, you are not with us. What we need to do is listen, learn to listen without defending a position, just being open to listening. That as a people, we want what is reflective of our people's aspirations: good housing, good education, living well, good health. But we see different ways of getting to it. The same with Pan-Africanism and uniting Africa. We've got different groups focusing on different things, but it does not make one good or the other bad. We have, like my brother was saying, intellectuals who, from a Eurocentric point of view, have made it. And a lot of our African intellectuals, and I'm going to point out Zimbabwe in this case, you have people who are aspiring to be referred to Dr. So-and-so, Dr. So-and-so. And yet, if you ask them, what is it they've contributed to the body of knowledge that now gives them the right to be a Dr. So-and-so? There's absolutely nothing. Because as Africans, we have kind of mastered that for us to get on in this Eurocentric world, we must assimilate. And the more we assimilate, the better we run away from our own culture, the more acceptable we are. This is why some of us are able to write papers to IMF, be regarded as the fundis in that area, because we have hoodwinked our way. And it is unfortunate that other Africans who are not as educated look up to the assimilated Africans who have given up their Africanness to show us what our history was like. And yet we are asking these people to look at ourselves through the Eurocentric eyes, which we shouldn't. And this is why, in some ways, I kind of go around my ordinary life being ashamed to be seen as an intellectual, an educated person, because for me, it has come to symbolize that group of people that will not bow down to understanding the ordinary African's experience and try to see ways to elevate the ordinary African so they come up with guided solutions to their problems. So, what am I saying? I am saying, what Nkrumah is saying in this passage is, we need to work at making sure that, one, we understand whose perspective the African position that we're talking about is. I'm one of those people who gave Nkrumah and the result of what happened to him as evidence of the gap between the leadership of the Africans at that time. Nkrumah is now being proven right. Prophetic. And in a way, whilst what he could see was the right way, there was, I don't want to use the word failure. There was an inability to communicate at the same level as those people who saw things differently. So, as Pan-Africanists, what we need to do is One, understand the lie of the land where we are operating from, and work with people so that they understand where we are operating from. Because I fear we might be talking to ourselves. And the ordinary person in the street is hungry. Therefore, to the person who brings them food, which is what the Catholic Church has been very good at. They will come and solve people's problems, open orphanages, give people food, and then they turn to Christ. I will stop there for now.
Thank you, Sister Tapua. You've raised some really interesting points, and I've let you go on, even though there are three other people that I'd like to also bring in. But I thank you because it's been a very interesting conversation. Sister Grace, I'm going to do a Sister Tapua to you, and ask that Brother Sam comes in first, then Sister Grace, then Sir WHK. I'd love you to also make a comment on what our reading has been. So each of you, we've only got 15 minutes left. Let me give each of you 5 minutes. Try not to go over it. Thank you very much. Brother Sam, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you to the inputs by Sister Tapua, always brilliant. Just to latch on the last part of her remarks about the Catholics, yes, they do those aspects of giving us equipment, but they never teach us. This is the problem with them. They never teach us to do those things. They don't make us self-reliant. They come as messiahs. They come as people that provide. The problem is they must teach us to do these things by ourselves. And this is where this history is very important. You know, I was really making an input to add up on what Brother Pigeon was saying. The rigid frameworks, they make presuppositions. In South Africa, they came and said they found an empty land. And we know that Steve Biko answered that, saying it is like having a 7 or 10 room house and you're sitting in your lounge and somebody gets into the back door and say, this is my house. I found nobody. Because the African people had this vast land and they were moving wherever they want to go. If the grazing is on the left-hand side, they will all push to the left for their grazing. And they will come back this side when the grass comes back this side to be fertile. But the Europeans were presupposing that because there's nobody here, therefore they found the land empty. This is the history that we need to do. And the other thing about this history, we should also know when this history is written, because according to the studies, these Europeans plan ahead. So what they put in today, it is something that is meant to come into force in the future. And unfortunately, some of us, we don't see this. They came with a separate development in South Africa, and they started by saying groups, areas, act, only whites this side, blacks this side. And they went further. When history develops, they came with what they call the Bantu stance. Now, this is the only land which you can occupy. This side is only for the whites. Because they plan ahead and they put this history more into the play for us. Therefore, it is important to also understand that history is also according to the times of that planning people. But for me, the important thing about this is that this history also comes back and shapes how ideology interprets every phase of the time and epochs that we live in. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Brother Sam. Sister Grace, let me just say something to Brother in Wama Africa. Brother, is there any chance you could put what you have to say in the chat? Because I would like Sister Grace to go next. And then there's WHK, Winlock, I think, who hasn't said anything. Yes? You've only got 10 minutes.
We also have, I think, somebody by Rinumi, Rinumi, who has also spoken. So maybe you can
I
take two of
know,
them
but
as
he's just
this.
come in, so I don't think
Yeah,
so I've
yeah.
One Map Africa, if you could write what it is. If Sister Grace and Sir Wing Lock has managed to go through, we'll let you come in. But otherwise, we've only got 10 minutes. Thank you. Sister Grace, please, you got 5 minutes at the most. Thank you. Sister Grace.
Hi. A lot has been said, and each time somebody speaks, and then I have other ideas to say, but I'll just touch on the last comment on what was that comment? There was something about good men and difficulties communicating with the masses at different levels of the community, and that our history not being known and stuff like that. On the perennial thing, I would say there's a guy in our community in my country who is from my country, who is a social media person, and always he will put in his videos, history is the, what does he say? History is the best teacher, something to that effect. History is the best teacher. So he refers to things that have happened in the past and that they're happening again, and that we should take note to see that what happened then is now happening again, and it's happening again and again and again, and we need to be learning from our history. And basically, obviously, he comments on these politicians, what they do, what they've done in the past, and that they're about to do it again, and stuff like that. And I often find the history is distorted by politics and this divide and rule that you were asking earlier. Why do we argue? Why do we this disunity? It's brought in by all these structures that starts distorting things, distorting history, just to gain power, just to gain control. So they distort past history, and they bring in new history, and misrepresenting things. So the people are growing up confused. They're growing up confused. So different generations will have seen something different. The new generation, then there's no continuity of carrying on and to the next generation and next generation. As a result, we're just a people in conflict. So when we are arguing about politics, these different generations are giving different views to things, or they approach things differently. But like I've always said, we've got this new guy into politics. He was the vice president. He's now standing as the president. He is an academic, a professional researcher, into community development. He's into almost everything. He's a serious content creator. He's a performer. He writes plays. He's a drama. People have known him from long before, when he had his drama series and stuff like that, just being a comedian. So they didn't take him seriously when he came into power. But because people knew him from what he's done before, his good work in the comic world, and producing films and things like that. So when he came into power, fellow politicians would demean him over, oh, he's just a comedian, he's just this, he's just that, he's just this. And meanwhile, his comics were still being played on social media. They kind of came back again, just to show his character and funny things, that he's not a serious politician. So now that we're going towards elections, we've got elections on the 16th. So he's the vice president to a president who is in a different party, and he formed his whilst he was in this vice presidency post. So now they're competing for presidents and 17 others. But so they kept him busy, just sending him away. Last week, he had gone to some country in Asia or Europe or somewhere. And so people were saying, so when is he going to do his own campaign? So anyway, he comes back. He arrives from the airport straight to go and do his rallies in certain villages. And then he makes a comment and he says, oh, I've just arrived and I was told to come here, so I'm here. But I was so worried that my plane will not disappear. That was the first statement he made. The very first controversial comment he made, referring to the other vice president that was killed. So he says, oh, I was worried my plane will go missing, but I'm here. People were like, what? What did he just say? From then onwards, he's just spilling and spilling and spilling what he's seen in the government. And I'm thinking, I've been telling these people, they've forgotten this guy is a serious researcher. He was in there to research the whole system. He's now coming back every day with a single item, educating the people. And because of the way he communicates, he can speak to all levels at the same time, including a child all the way up. They will understand what he's saying. He's educating people at the same time, how they should approach these elections, how they should approach these politicians. And he's saying, I'm not here to say I want to be a president, but I just want to educate you on what's going on and what's happening, and that in the government there's so many thieves. I've seen so many thieves. And then the government got so angry with him to the extent that they dismissed him 2 days ago as a vice president, and then they reinstated him, saying, oh, it's unconstitutional, because he is literally breaking the internet. And but those are the good men. Those are the people who communicate to correct all this and bring unity. So it's confusing now. People, they had decided on who they're going to vote. Now it's swinging all the way to this guy. But there are some good men, but they're not given a chance. When you're doing good, when you're communicating, when you're a threat to certain people, they'll oppress and oppress and oppress, and you don't get to hear these people. But
so is it
with a number
that you
of
got
them,
2 days? You got
Sorry?
2 days to find out the end of the results. The election is in 2 days' time.
No. The elections are on the 16th of September.
Oh, September. Okay.
So he hadn't started his campaign until 3 days ago.
Okay.
Because he was still working for this government, so he didn't want to rock the boat until the
Okay.
end. So now he's just spilling and spilling. They've got so angry with him. What I'm saying is, 2 days ago, they had
He
dismissed
started.
him.
Okay. Now I've got you.
They said to him, if that's how you feel about the government, then you need to resign.
You need
So
to go.
he said, why
Yep.
do I have to resign? Why don't you make
Okay.
make me leave? So
Well, we'll look
but
forward to you've got a whole month ahead, so we'll look forward to the next contributions on his.
But he's good with history and everything. He can combine everything in one, and everything
Okay.
will understand what he's
Okay.
saying.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me go to Sir Winglock. I'm sorry, you got 4 minutes. Please, could you unmute and just let us know what you thought of the reading, if you can. Thank you. Sir Winlock, Sir WHK, are you ready to say anything? If not, I'm going to go over. We got 3 minutes left of our meeting, so then I'll go over to Brother Pigeon to end. Oh, sorry. So, Brother Pigeon, maybe you can take over and end the meeting. We have another meeting on Saturday, and I hope you'll all be present. Brother Pigeon, down to you. Brother Pigeon.
Yes, Sister, I'm
Okay,
here. I'm
brother.
here. My system is misbehaving. I'm here.
Okay, good. We got 3 minutes left. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sister Ida, and thank you very much for all members who have been able to share with us their comments and their thinking actually in this matter. Now, this is what you do. And you've been doing this without missing for the last 2 to almost 3 years now. And what we do is we share our thinking. The moment we share our thinking, we start engaging text and writing in a critical manner so that we can also be able even to go deep to analyze on whose ideology was this text written. So we take all thinkings to be equal. We don't have the perfect one or the best one, but we rather just promote a free space where we can share as Pan-Africans what we think. So the next week probably we'll have to continue this reading, where now Nkrumah is now focusing on specific example of Ranke, who was actually one of the historians as well, and how their positions influenced or gave some contradiction in the society. That's what we'll be looking at in our next Thursday reading. We also have a unification class, which takes place every Saturday from the same time, which is 7 p.m. London, I think, time now, and 6 p.m. Ghana. And this Saturday, we'll be looking at the Pan-African infrastructure. Our last Saturday, we were looking at the Pan-African solidarity, and this led us to create up a group where we could invite all various Pan-African groupings and leaders to come in place, so where we can keep sharing some of what we do in various groupings to see how we can spread this within our network, stand in solidarity. If there's an event coming in, appear in any of these spaces, learn what is necessary. So that group is going on, cut us, of course, with the thinking of Sister Tapoa. We have around now 20 members, probably 20 organizations joining us. And we actually ask more members and various organizations to still be part of this so that we can have a space where all these organizations can have people still discussing, sharing, these are meeting coming up for this, these are meeting coming up for this, and to see how we can occupy this space. So get in touch with me. I've shared my contact. I've also shared the WhatsApp link for our consciousness class, which is one of our WhatsApp groups. We are very strict on that WhatsApp group. We only add members who have attended our virtual classes. And the intention of our WhatsApp group is to extend this conversation further if you want to have it further on the WhatsApp group. So I've shared that WhatsApp group. If you are not part of it, you can join us and feel free to engage the text we have here. Now, this Saturday we'll be discussing the Pan-African infrastructure, basically the whole architect about Pan-Africanism, and I'll be sharing more detailed update on this via our broadcast list or via our groups, which I request you to also get in touch with me if you're not in the broadcast list so that you can get an inbox directly of our upcoming meetings. I've also shared the link for our CSG library. We have around 7,000 to 8,000 soft copy books, and probably most of the books we selected were books either written about Africa or written by Africans. And now that you've learned the ideological part, you still have to engage those books very conscious of or trying to identify what is the ideological standpoint of the author. So once again, comrades, permit me to thank you very much for your time. And Sister Eda, thank you for stepping in and sharing with us. And to all those who have contributed, those who are not able to contribute, we thank you for finding time and your data to be with us. Let's meet again this Saturday, or let's meet again on Thursday, or if you want a Swahili class, let's meet again on Tuesday. Have a blessed evening to you all. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you very much. Good night, everyone.
Everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.